When I told Jack I wanted a divorce, he got all introspective and dropped this line that still lingers in my mind. "The grass isn't greener on the other side, Wendy. It's greener where you water it." Whatever. I was 25, stuck in the suburbs with a toddler, while my Instagram feed was bursting with pictures of my friends living their dream lives. Hey, I'm Jack. I'm 28 now, but this story really begins about 6 years ago when Wendy and I tied the knot. We were young and in love. How many stories start just like that? But wait, don't check out yet. This isn't your typical young love gone wrong story. Or maybe it is. Either way, it's mine, and I need to tell it. "You're too young to get married," my mom had said, stirring her coffee with that perfected look of concern she'd mastered over the years. But Wendy and I? We were certain we had it all figured out. The first year was everything we'd imagined. I'd come home from work to find Wendy planning our future, sketching ideas for a nursery even before we were expecting. "Look, babe," she'd say, her eyes lighting up. "I found the perfect yellow. It'll work whether it's a boy or a girl." Then Emily was born, and man, that changed everything. Holding her for the first time was surreal. This tiny human in my arms, I swore right then I'd do anything for her. I picked up extra shifts at work, started a side hustle in web development. "We're going to give her everything," I told Wendy, who, despite being exhausted, glowed in her hospital bed. "We're really doing this adulting thing, aren't we?" Wendy would joke in those early days as we navigated parenthood together. But over time, her jokes started to carry a different tone. I noticed the first shift when her friend Lisa began posting pictures from trips to Miami. Wendy would scroll through her phone for hours, her expression growing distant. "Must be nice," she'd mutter, bouncing Emily on her knee, "just hopping on a plane whenever you feel like it." The comments became more frequent. "Did you see Melissa's new boyfriend? Apparently he's some hotshot DJ in Vegas." Or, "Sarah got that marketing job in New York. Remember when I wanted to go into marketing?" I tried to fix things, planned date nights, surprised her with little gifts, organized trips when we could afford them. But it felt like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in it. "You don't get it, Jack," she said one evening after Emily had gone to bed. We sat on the porch, the same one where I'd proposed. I look at our friends, and they're actually living, really living. And us? We're just here. "We're building something real," I countered. "We've got Emily. We've got our home." "I'm 27, Jack. 27, and I feel like I'm 50. After that, our conversations grew harder. Silences stretched longer. Wendy went out more with her friends, coming home with mascara streaked down her cheeks. Then, one morning, while Emily was making a mess of her cereal as usual, Wendy looked up from her phone and said it, "I think we should get a divorce." It was so casual, like she was suggesting a new restaurant to try. "I need to find myself, Jack," she explained, her voice steady while my world tilted. "We got married too young. This isn't what I want anymore." I tried. Counseling, taking a break, anything, but you can't make someone stay who's already left in their mind. Looking back, I realize Wendy had checked out long before she said the words. The lawyers, the paperwork, the negotiations. I moved through it all as if underwater. The only thing that kept me grounded was Emily's tiny hand in mine during park visits, or her innocent questions about why Daddy didn't live at home anymore. "Sometimes grown-ups need to live in different houses," I'd explain, fighting to keep my voice steady. "But Mommy and Daddy both love you very much." You know what they don't tell you about divorce? It's not just the pain, it's the numbness. The surreal feeling of stepping into your new apartment, half your life packed in boxes. The way your thumb hovers over your ex's number out of habit before you remember you're not that person for them anymore. But this isn't a story about the end. Looking back now, I see it was the start of something else entirely. I just didn't know it at the time. "Hey, it's Wendy here. Let's clear something up. I'm not the bad guy in this story, okay? When I told Jack I wanted a divorce, he went all deep and said something I still can't shake. The grass isn't greener on the other side, Wendy. It's greener where you water it." Whatever. I was 25, stuck in the suburbs with a toddler while my Instagram feed was filled with my friends living their best lives. Do you know what it's like watching your college roommate date a Miami Heat player while you're scraping baby food off your shirt? Lisa would FaceTime me from rooftop parties, her life a blur of designer outfits and endless champagne brunches. "Girl, you should have been here," she'd squeal, and I'd look around my living room littered with Emily's toys, feeling like my youth was slipping through my fingers. When I told Jack I wanted a divorce, the marriage counselor he insisted we see as a last-ditch effort asked me what I truly wanted. "I want to feel alive again," I admitted. Jack just sat there with that same sad, defeated look on his face. "You have a beautiful family," the counselor pointed out. "But a picture-perfect family doesn't rack up likes on Instagram or get you invites to exclusive parties." My lawyer was fierce, sharp, and exactly what I needed. A powerhouse in stilettos. "You're young, you've got primary custody, and he earns good money," she said, tapping her manicured nails on the desk. "We'll make sure you're set." And she did. I walked away with the house, generous alimony, and child support. Jack barely put up a fight. He just looked at me with disappointment, like he knew something I didn't. The freedom was intoxicating at first. I had my own Instagram-worthy moments, poolside parties, VIP lounges, and dating men with verified blue check marks. My parents would watch Emily while I found myself, which mostly involved finding the bottom of a Cosmopolitan glass in a trendy South Beach lounge. Last month, I had what I thought was my dream night, front-row tickets to a Drake concert, followed by a VIP after-party at Eclipse. I wore a silver dress that cost more than a month's groceries. "You're living your best life, girl," Lisa squealed, snapping photos for her Instagram story. "This is what you've been missing." The party was everything I'd imagined. Beautiful people, endless champagne, and a DJ whose name I couldn't remember. But around 2 a.m., while sitting in a booth that cost $2,000 to reserve, I had this moment of clarity. I watched as everyone around me tried so hard to look like they were having the time of their lives. Sarah was crying in the bathroom over a guy she'd met twice. Madison was obsessively calculating how many followers she'd gained that night. And me? I was thinking about Emily's school play, the one I'd missed for this. "OMG, did you see who just walked in?" Lisa gasped, grabbing my arm so hard she nearly spilled her drink. "That's Jake's manager, the one who follows me." "Does he know you bought half your followers?" Madison muttered under her breath. Suddenly they were bickering over who was more authentic on Instagram. "At least I don't Photoshop my waist," Lisa shot back. "Says the girl with lip fillers she pretends are natural," Sarah chimed in, miraculously recovered from her earlier breakdown. I sat there, watching my fabulous friends tear each other apart over filters and followers, and felt hollow, just completely empty. Jack would sometimes offer to take Emily for the weekend. Out of spite, I'd usually say no. Why should he get to play happy family when I fought so hard for custody? My parents were always willing babysitters, but my mom would give me these pointed looks. "Emily asked for you 3 times today," she'd say. And I'd feel a twinge of guilt, but then my phone would buzz with plans for the night, and that twinge would fade. Dating was thrilling at first. There was the part-time DJ who flew me to his shows, the retired athlete with a Lamborghini. Each fling made me feel like I was finally living the glamorous life I'd envied on social media. "This is what I deserve," I'd think as I posted perfectly edited photos meant to make my married friends jealous. But here's the thing about these guys. They disappear faster than a Snapchat story once they learn you have a kid. "You're amazing, but I'm not looking for anything serious," became a phrase I heard on repeat, or they'd suggest keeping things casual, their gaze shifting uncomfortably at the mention of Emily. Some nights, after a disappointing date or scrolling through photos of Jack and Emily at the park, his words about the grass being greener would come back to haunt me. Those nights were the worst. I'd stare at my DMs, filled with fire emojis from strangers, and then around my empty, beautifully furnished house, and feel nothing. 3 years after Wendy and I divorced, I barely recognized the man I was back then, the guy who spent sleepless nights staring at his phone hoping she'd change her mind. That man is gone. Not because I'm bitter, but because I'm grateful. Sometimes the worst moments in your life turn out to be exactly what you needed. The first year was rough. Every other weekend with Emily felt like a cruel joke. "Daddy, why can't I stay longer?" she'd ask, and it broke me every time. But I refused to be the bitter, resentful divorce dad who badmouths their ex. Emily deserved better than that. I threw myself into two things: being the best dad I could be during my time with Emily and rebuilding myself when she wasn't around. I started hitting the gym at 5 a.m., learned to cook more than mac and cheese, and took coding classes to boost my career. At first I told myself it wasn't about Wendy, but I'd be lying if I said the thought of proving her wrong never crossed my mind. "You're different," my sister observed one Sunday over coffee. "Stronger, maybe." I hadn't noticed, but she was right. The gym had transformed more than just my body. Those early morning workouts became therapy. Each rep seemed to push out the anger and pain until there wasn't much left to work through. Then came the day that changed everything. Emily and I were at the park, and I was teaching her to ride her bike without training wheels. A woman jogging by stopped and doubled back when she saw Emily take a tumble. "Is she okay?" she asked, genuine concern in her eyes. That was Kelly, a pediatric nurse who, as it turned out, had a soft spot for single dads who could laugh at themselves. Our first date wasn't at a fancy restaurant. We took Emily for ice cream, and Kelly didn't flinch when my daughter got chocolate sauce on her designer jeans. "Kids are supposed to be messy," she laughed, helping Emily clean up. "It means they're having fun." I waited 3 months before introducing Kelly to Emily as someone I was dating. Kelly was careful, reading books about blended families, and always checking in to make sure Emily was comfortable. "She's the priority," Kelly would say. "We go at her pace." Last month, while we were making dinner together, Kelly mentioned, almost casually, that she wanted kids of her own someday. My heart did this strange flip. Here was this amazing woman, 7 years younger than me, who could have chosen anyone. Instead, she chose the divorced dad with limited custody and plenty of emotional baggage. "You know," I told Kelly, "I've actually gotten pretty good at this dad thing. Lots of practice." She laughed and tossed a carrot slice at me. "We're expecting our first child together in 6 months, we found out right after I proposed." Emily is ecstatic about being a big sister and has already picked out names for both a boy and a girl. Watching her and Kelly bond over baby catalogs makes me wonder how I got so lucky. Sometimes I bump into old friends who mention Wendy's Instagram, her parties, her dating escapades, her meticulously edited photos. I just smile and steer the conversation elsewhere. That life feels like a distant memory now, like a movie I once watched but can't quite recall the details of. Yesterday, Kelly and I were house hunting. With a baby on the way, we need more room, and Emily deserves her own space, for when she stays with us. "What about a yard?" Kelly suggested, "for the kids to play in?" The way she said kids, plural, as though it was the most natural thing in the world, made me realize just how far I've come. Emily noticed it too. Last weekend she looked up from her coloring book and said, "Daddy, you smile a lot more now." Out of the mouths of babes, right? You know what's ironic? Wendy left because she thought she was missing out on life. But sitting here now, with Kelly asleep on the couch, her hand resting on her growing belly, and Emily's artwork taped all over the fridge, I've realized something. I'm not missing out on anything. This is life. Messy, imperfect, and absolutely perfect in its flaws. People say the best revenge is living well, but for me, it's not about revenge. It's about learning that sometimes you have to let go of the life you planned to find the one that's been waiting for you all along. 3 years ago, I traded my wedding ring for what I thought was a ticket to my dream life. Now I'm 30, sitting in a quiet house on a Friday night, scrolling through dating apps that make me feel like expired goods on a clearance rack. Last week's rejection still stings. "Sorry, I just don't do single moms." The guy didn't even have the decency to say it in person, just a text after I mentioned Emily during a coffee date. Before that, he'd been charming, laughing at my jokes and brushing my hand, but the second I said, "my daughter," his whole demeanor shifted, his interest evaporating. My Instagram following has dropped by half. Turns out people get bored watching you pose in the same clubs with a rotating cast of meaningless faces. Even Lisa, my once fabulous friend who dated the Miami Heat player, has moved on. She married an accountant in Ohio last month. The party scene gets old, she told me over FaceTime, showing off her suburban backyard. I needed something real. I had something real once, didn't I? And I threw it away. For what? Yesterday, I drove past Jack's new house. I'm not proud of it, but sometimes I do that. Yesterday, I drove past his new house with her school bag. She left her basket of bones on my appetizer. Kelly had made them for me. It was a reminder of our affectionate relationship. It was a reminder of our affectionate relationship with my baby brother. Yesterday, I drove past his new house with her school bag. They looked like a family straight out of a Target commercial. It's not fair, I told my therapist. Yes, I have one now. He gets to move on with some younger woman, and I'm stuck dating men who disappear the moment they find out I have a kid. Are you angry at Jack? She asked. Or at yourself? I hate when she does that. The truth is, on paper, my life looks fine. A nice house, decent alimony, primary custody of Emily. But try explaining that to my heart at 3 a.m., when I'm lying awake wondering where it all went wrong. Most of my real friends, not the party crowd, have settled down. They post pictures of family vacations and soccer games, while I convince myself that the next swipe right might finally be different. My mom doesn't sugarcoat things anymore. You chose this, she said last week when I was crying about yet another failed date. But choosing something different now doesn't make you a failure, Wendy. It makes you wiser. The breaking point came last month at Emily's school play. I sat alone, watching my little girl in her star costume. Then Jack walked in, holding Kelly's hand as he guided her to a seat like she was fragile. Her belly was noticeably bigger now. After the show, Emily ran to them, throwing her arms around both. They looked so natural together. I left early, tears streaming down my face in the parking lot. Some nights I scroll back through old photos, past the club shots and selfies, back to when we were young and stupid and happy. There's one of Jack teaching Emily to walk, his face lit with pure joy as she stumbled toward him. I was so busy watching other people's lives back then, I forgot to live my own. My dating profile says I'm living my best life, but even I don't believe it anymore. What does that even mean? The men I meet either want no-strings fun, or, ironically, are divorced dads who insist on a partner without baggage. Their word, not mine. The worst part? Jack was right. That stupid thing he said about the grass being greener where you water it won't leave my head. I spent so much time climbing the fence to see what was on the other side, I let my own yard turn into a desert. Last week, Emily asked me, "Why aren't you married like Daddy's going to be? Don't you want to be happy, Mommy?" 6-year-olds don't hold back, do they? I am happy, I told her. But she gave me this look, like she knew better. So here I am, 30 years old, watching my ex-husband build a perfect new life, while I'm stuck in a loop of bad dates and regret. My friends say I'm still young, that it's not too late to start over. Maybe they're right. Or maybe this is karma. The funny thing about freedom, sometimes it feels a lot like being lost. And all those doors I thought would open when I left Jack? Turns out, most were revolving doors, spinning me back to where I started. Only now I'm older, maybe a little wiser, and definitely lonelier. But hey, at least I have my Instagram memories, right? Even if most of them are just filtered versions of a life I thought I wanted.